Hello everyone, Max here with Fiction Rant to tell you all about Daleks and why I don't compare them against anything on this channel. Also, I have links to my coffee and merch store in the description if you'd like to support the channel. Alright, for those of you who don't know, Daleks are one of the longest running recurring villains of the show Doctor Who, starting all the way back in the mid-60s. They've evolved significantly over the years, but what's been consistent is the general appearance of individual Daleks, their malevolence towards everything non-Dalek, and their desire to improve themselves, and of course to conquer everything while screaming, "Exterminate!" the whole time. Despite the fact that Daleks have existed since the first incarnation of the Doctor way back in 1963 with the episode The Daleks, we don't really get a good insight into their origins until the fourth Doctor in the 1975 episode Genesis of the Daleks. There we learn that inside each of the iconic pepperpot armor of each Dalek is a tentacled mutant, which has been engineered to be hyper-intelligent, but incapable of basically any emotion except hatred. They also got shackled to thinking entirely logically, what ended up actually being a hindrance for much of their existence, but they figured out ways around this eventually. And here's where we get the first glimpse of how terrifying the Daleks will ultimately become. The Doctor in this episode is voluntold by the Time Lords to either wipe them out, modify them in some way to make them less aggressive, or figure out some kind of inherent weakness. He isn't a big fan of Jedicide, so he opts for identifying that if given the ability to feel any kind of guilt over their actions, the Daleks would basically just self-destruct. The key point, though, is that the Time Lords assigned the Doctor this task because they feared that the Daleks would eventually be a threat to the universe, including the Time Lords themselves. Let me put that in context. The Time Lords created TARDISes, which allow nearly unrestricted time and space travel. They control the web of time, which controls the concept of causality. They have created weapons, such as the DMAC gun, which can retroactively remove things from the timeline. That means that whatever they hit is removed entirely from history, rewriting every event they were related to as if they weren't there. The Time Lords themselves perceive time non-linearly as a whole. Past, present, and futures is just the unified field. Stuff like that. The Daleks are supposed to threaten these people. So, what ends up happening is the very slow burn of Daleks showing up again and again and again throughout the decades of the show, with more and more impressive capabilities with each successive appearance. In their first appearance, they were restricted to their city, where their suits received power through the floor, so you could just place an insulator underneath them and that would cause them to power down. Later, they get around that weakness, but were unable to climb stairs. Later still, they learn to fly and get around that weakness, and so on and so on and so on until we reach their height, at which point the Time Lords themselves join the fight and the Time War breaks out. We don't get to see most of this on screen, but we do get a ton of references in the Doctor Who reboot series with a whole bunch of what the Daleks could do at this point. For starters, they could just time travel at will, just like the Time Lords. Some units even had time machines just built into their armor, so individuals could jump around as desired. This was used to great effect in a few ways. One, they could simply go back in time before a foe was particularly threatening and eliminate them then. Having trouble with Genghis Khan, just go back and nuke his village from orbit while he's a child. Problem solved. Against the Time Lords, they could use their mastery of genetic engineering and time travel to plant progenitors in multiple points along the timeline, which would then essentially just hatch into legions of Daleks that could then attack the Time Lord defenses from multiple past and present vectors to outflank them. Past, present, and future vectors. They also created a device that would collapse the void between alternate universes, allowing them to pull in infinite resources from infinite dimensions. They used captured Time Lord technology to create paradoxical fleets that could just self-replicate forever, allowing them to amass billions of saucer ships in hours. The weapons on those saucer ships were actually capable of destroying battle TARDISes. Oh yeah, quick pivot. A TARDIS isn't just a time machine, it's basically a pocket universe. The one that the Doctor uses was a garbage heap antique when he got it, stole it rather, and it's still capable of taking him anywhere at any time while expanding infinitely to accommodate the Doctor's needs. It's basically a room of requirement dialed up to 1,000,000. So yeah, the Time Lords made better versions of that and then weaponized them, and Dalek ship weapons can destroy them. Okay, back to insane feats. Oh, I should probably also mention teleportation. Many factions in Who can do teleportation, but it's not brought up much, but it's still important. But yeah, unlike most sci-fi factions, basically everyone in who's sufficiently advanced can just teleport around. The Daleks also managed to harness time energy so they could regenerate themselves and their armor, just like the Time Lords, making them incredibly hard to kill, even if you could get through their armor and shields. Oh yeah, they're also armored and shielded. The regeneration is probably why millions were imprisoned by the Time Lords instead of just destroyed. It was just too much effort to actually destroy them. Finally, I'll mention the reality warping bombs they use for planetary bombardment, which would cause affected cities to just age until they crumbled to dust in moments. Oh, and of course, the reality bomb, a mechanism so large that literal planets were used like gears. Oh yeah, they can teleport whole planets, by the way, which when activated would destroy all non-Dalek life in the entirety of all of the infinite universes. So, for the sake of argument, let's do a lightning round of the Daleks versus everyone. Star Trek Federation. The Daleks just go back in time, stop first contact, and then systematically conquer everything while exterminating everyone. Star Trek Borg. Travel back in time to whatever experiment created the Borg in the first place. Stop that from happening. Congrats, the Borg never existed. The Q from Star Trek. This one's a little tricky since Q are nigh omnipotent, but they're not omniscient. That is, they can do basically anything, but they don't know everything. So in a straight-up fight, the Daleks would get snapped out of existence. The solution? Spread out through all of time and space while developing anti-Q weaponry and then destroy the continuum all at once so the Q can't adapt. Necrons from Warhammer 40k, but at the height of their power during the War in Heaven. I could get into time travel stuff on this one, but let's mix it up. Let's do a super weapon this time. Just blow up the Milky Way galaxy. Yeah, they can do that too. The Forerunners from Halo. Time travel shenanigans should work fine here. Just travel back and blow up their homeworld. War's over before it begins. The Zeely from the Zeely sequence. Oh, well, actually, they even have a better level of control of time than the Daleks, so they'd probably actually win. I've never actually read the Zeely sequence myself, but from what little digging I've done, they also seem fairly silly in terms of power, so yeah, we'll give that one to the Zeely. I could go on, but you get the idea. Basically, in order to actually pose a real challenge to any faction that can circumvent causality and weaponize paradox while traveling through time at will, you need to be able to do the same thing, just to be able to stand a chance at all. Most factions in sci-fi can't do that. Even Star Trek, which employs time travel occasionally, has such crude methods for it that they simply wouldn't be able to keep up. And with that, I'll wrap this one up. Sorry I've never done a versus series against the Daleks, but hopefully this helps clarify why not. It just wouldn't be an interesting matchup for a series, since going back in time to beat the other faction before they get strong is always on the table and is a super common tactic they employ. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. Again, I have links to my coffee and merch store in the description, and in fact, I've even fired up a Patreon at this point, so you can check that out and even support the channel. I've got Nog and Harry Kim tiers, so you can either be an ensign or a cadet or an ensign, but if you're an ensign, you're stuck as an ensign forever because you will never, ever, ever get a promotion. Basically, I'm going to be doing conversations about nerd stuff on there, and if you want to support the channel while getting a, VIP approach to the conversations about all this kind of stuff, join on up. And until next time, live long and prosper, and may the Force be with you.